Assalamu alaikum. So can we have the brothers here to come to this side? Right, so it's going to be kind of easier for all of us to be on the same focus. Please. Yeah, let's move over here, please. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Abdul Ghaffar, can you?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, so this session is about basically just before marriage stuff. That's what I like to call it. And so what I like to do is, I think the important thing, waiting for the speakers to introduce themselves in this session is just to tell about, maybe what they do, and then kind of about, how long they've been married and that kind of stuff. I think that's probably a good way to introduce ourselves.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Faizan Majid. I am currently a case manager / licensed professional counselor associate at Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. I went to school for master's in counseling education. Basically, to simplify it, I'm a therapist. I work with lots of individuals. I work with couples, families, groups. My specialization is mental health. And we've dealt with sort of issues that come up with marriage or couples coming in for marriage issues in our organization. To answer your question, I've been married for 2 years now. Yeah, 2 years. December 2018. But yeah, alhamdulillah, I think that's it, right? Yeah. Okay. If y'all didn't hear, Sheikh Mahad asked me, who did your nikah? Sheikh Mahad did my nikah. MashaAllah.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Is that right? Okay. You can use this. All right. My name is Kamal Al-Makki. I'm one of the instructors of Al-Maghrib Institute, and I'm also one of 3 imams at Clear Lake Islamic Center. I've been married to my first wife for, that was a joke. Everyone is waiting for the list, huh? I've been married for 12 years. And so I'm not a licensed counselor, so I can only legally do consulting. Okay, I cannot counsel, but I consult. And that's it.
You don't mind, I'm gonna get closer to you if you don't mind, Sheikh. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mahad Qamar. My institute that I founded with my wife is called Suhba Institute. A lot of what we do is dealing with folks from the very get-go when they come out of high school, college, and they think, we want to get married. What do we do? How do we follow that process? So for individuals who are just starting off versus individuals who are already on the process and they found someone and they need help in terms of premarital counseling, premarital education, we offer that as well. We also offer programs for singles to be able to meet in person and online. Inshallah, we'll talk about that later. And we also do marital education and premarital training courses. And besides that, Suhba Institute, we also do some Islamic studies programs as well, alhamdulillah. And we're also newly the first ever chaplains, alhamdulillah. We're blessed with the honor to be at U of H MSA. So we're going to be over there as well. So hopefully some of y'all will see you at U of H, inshallah. But inshallah, good to be here, alhamdulillah.
All right, Jazakallah, everyone. All right, so the first question I have is a question that I've been asked before. I'm not sure I had the best answer for it. So if in Islam, we're not allowed to like date, quote unquote, which means, I go to her house, she comes to my house, nobody knows where we are and so on. If, people are saying, okay, we can't do that, so then how am I supposed to get to know this person for marriage? Everyone.
Okay. Let me start by saying this. Stop getting your guidance from movies. All right? You see how the question is posed? Like, if we can't date, how am I supposed to get to know her? Like, khalas, that's the only way?
Who told you that's the only way? So the question, the way it's formed, says that that you understand it incorrectly. I know it was none of you. I know it's this guy. Right? But it's like it shows that the understanding is incorrect. That's not the only way to get to know someone, right? And and that's also not a guarantee that you're going to have a very successful marriage. Just because we dated, I went to her house, she came over to my house, and that's why we're gonna have a good marriage, all right? I know there are many aspects here. Let me just say that one first, and then everyone, so that we don't repeat each other's words. How about just that?
Oh, I forgot to mention, I was also, alhamdulillah, been married 12 years. So, Sheikh, I got to find out the month. Maybe we got some correlation. Alhamdulillah, it's been 12 years. Um, with that question about the concept of dating, right? What's so interesting is I've spoken to a lot of Muslims in the UK, and the religious practicing Muslims will even use that vocabulary and terminology. So coming from a different lens, I asked them, why are you guys so okay with the concept of dating? When over here in America, most Muslims, practicing Muslims, if they say they're dating beforehand, you'd be like, oh man, that's really unfortunate. But they're like, no, what we mean by that is our parents know and they're chaperoning us. And I'm like, that's in America, that's not called a date. In America, that's not called a date. That's called you're trying to court, you're trying to get to know one another. And you're doing it in a halal way where there's somebody else who's present, or you're in a public place. And on top of that, you're at an age where you've told your parents and your parents know what you're doing. This is completely allowed and respectable and allowed to be doing something like this. But now when we put this terminology and we use the mindset that we have of dating over here, well, what does dating connotate? You're picking her up for the movies, you're going to bubble tea, you're laughing and being playful, and all you're doing is doing what we call like low chemistry stuff. You're seeing if you can have fun. Trust me, you can have fun with a lot of people, right? It's very easy to see if you can have fun with someone. But that high level chemistry stuff, where you're trying to find out, are you compatible in terms of your likings, your languages of love, financially, your understandings of family? So understanding that, looking at the terminology and making sure that some people might say dating over there in the UK, but when we hear that word, we're like, okay, obviously we have a very different connotation. So being able to understand that a man and a woman getting to know each other for the purpose of marriage, you can call it whatever. But culturally, when we say dating, as Muslims, we know, okay, no, that's dating in our minds has been built in as it's something very haram. Because many times what that's leading to is not an actual relationship in marriage, it's people having fun and fooling around. So typically, if I was to give a word to it, I would say Muslims, we engage in courting, which is that you're getting to know a brother or a sister for the purpose of marriage. And what is also entailed in this, your parents know and they're approving of this. You're not hiding behind people's backs and like, scurrying around like rats and without like shameful and afraid. So being able to be men, right, about this and being able to do it in a way where you're able to approach the sister's father. You're able to approach your own parents. Because folks will say, I can't go to my parents, I can't go to her parents. That means you're not ready to get married. You're not ready to get married if you can't approach anybody's parents to get married, right? You're trying to have a little relationship on the side. But hopefully, inshallah, I'll pass it over to Faizan if you want to share anything else.
I mean, y'all covered pretty much everything, mashallah. I like that you mentioned that it's high chemistry stuff instead of low chemistry. Because for me and my wife, we actually met and got to know each other in a public place with our parents knowing. But it was a masjid event. It was at a planning event for a carnival, and that's kind of where it took off from. But again, I think from there it wasn't more of like, all right, let's spend time together, let's go to the movies, let's do this, that. That's all low chemistry stuff. And like Sheikh Mahad said, that I mean you can do that with pretty much anyone, right? But after that it became focused. Okay, if this is something that we are interested in, involving our parents, getting to know what your deal breakers are, getting to know what it is that really matters when it comes to getting married. And before you even get to that point, I think the settings have sort of been mentioned, but I think it is important to realize that you need to know a little bit about yourself as well. You need to know who you are. You need to know what are the things that matter to you. If family is a very big thing, which generally for Muslims it is, the interaction between families and the deal breakers for you should be defined for you before you kind of get started in that process. Or they don't have to be completely there, but you should have at least some idea, so that when you do get to that point, then you are focused in your talks and you're not just dealing with having fun. And I hope that helps a little bit, inshallah.
Okay, so according to Sheikh Kamal, I'm about to ask another silly question. So, are you saying that like we can't even be friends with the opposite gender? Can I like go to the masjid and just hang out with the sisters on the sister side and just be friends and stuff?
Okay, don't go to the sister side and hang out over there.
Yes, there's an uncle there that will punch you in the liver. Okay, so men and women can't be friends. I don't care what anyone on this planet says. Men and women cannot be friends. You ever watch that video on YouTube where they interview all these guys and girls who are friends, and then they ask them if you could take it to the next level, would you? The guys 100% are ready, because guys are lions and women are gazelles. Have you ever seen a gazelle hanging out with a lion? And then the gazelle tells its other gazelle friends, "There's nothing's gonna happen. We're just friends. We're just friends. Just wait till the lion gets hungry." No such thing. Let's not play games, people. There is tension between men and women. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us the biggest fitna, the biggest trial for a man is a woman, more than anything else. And if you know something is top, what do? And if someone, let me give you another example. I'm not comparing women to poison, but if someone tells you there's poison on this plate, all of this is poison, what do you like? Stay away from it because it's poison, or do you come and like smell the plate, taste a little bit, just put some on your hand? You stay far away from it. So when the Prophet tells us this is the most dangerous thing for a man, then you tell me, no, we're friends, and she can study with me for 3 hours alone in a room, and we're just buddies, and we're co-workers, and we're classmates. You stay far away. That's how it works. Don't give me none of this friend stuff. No such thing as friends. And there are a lot of studies that I researched concerning this, and the results I'll give you in a nutshell show that in more cases, more often than not, the woman is completely ready to be friends forever. But the guy is a hunter. He is a lion. He's just waiting for his opportunity. All right.
I echo the sentiments of the Sheikh. I would say one thing to maybe kind of dive deeper into the question is, what's the mindset behind the question? What are you asking? Are you trying to sincerely have a friend, or are you trying to get married to somebody? Right? That's the question. If the question is that you're interested in someone and you want to be able to build a rapport with them, again, ask yourself the question, you're not trying to find a friend. You're not trying to be friends with that person. Be upfront with yourself and be honest with yourself and your family and the people around you and say, I'm actually interested in the sister and I want to get to know her for the purpose of marriage. And then in that case, alhamdulillah, then you're able to go and have your friends, your family support, and they're comfortable supporting you. And the sister is not hiding and doing something shady behind her parents' back. And they're able to have that conversation. In that regards, when you start to get to know one another, and you start to build that level of understanding that, okay, this is someone who I want to marry. I've already seen this person's akhlaq, maybe from the MSA, their character, maybe from the masjid, from the community. I know them, I've known of them, my family knows of them. And then now you're just building it even more, because when you're having those conversations, and I'll mention a resource to you guys. We have a resource that we created. It's the 260 essential questions before getting married. So before getting married, there's a resource we put out. It's on our Instagram page. It's absolutely free. You can find it and download it. The institute is called SUHBAH. Hopefully, if there's like a WhatsApp group or something, I can send it over to them. But you can download it, and it goes over finances. It goes over your personality. It goes over family understanding. It goes over your physical health, your mental health, your level of practicing of Islam, right? Your understanding of these things. So when you're having those conversations, then you'll be able to get to a point where the Messenger of Allah tells us that the best thing for two people that love each other is a nikah, is marriage itself. And even for the longest time, I was of the opinion that you couldn't fall in love. But until the Prophet said it, I said, okay, you can fall in love, I guess, before marriage too. But I'll tell you this, the love before marriage versus after marriage is different. There's a surface level love of infatuation, and then the person's qualities, characteristics, and the ups and downs of life will make you truly love that person. But inshallah, hopefully that was helpful in terms of understanding, just reframing. Why are we trying to have that relationship with women in the first place? Right? Is it to be cordial and to have a sense of community and say salam and be respectful? Great, we're told to do that. Say salam, be respectful to the other gender. But are we going to go to the movies and hang out every single day and do all that? What is that leading to? What's the purpose? And when you get hungry, then the problem happens, right?
Nothing to add except no, guys and girls can't be friends.
Okay, before I move on to the next one, I wanted to see, does anyone have any kind of question or comment that you'd like to make from the brother side, or if not, then maybe one from the elders. But the younger youth get presidents first. Any question or comment?
Not everyone at once now. MashaAllah.
All right, this is what I'll do. I'll keep going. We'll get some paper, and then we'll. Okay. Well, actually, I don't even have signal here. That's the problem. Well, actually, I do have signal. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna stand behind you. The seats.
تعال sit here. Sit here. Sit here.
Come sit, sit.
I'm gonna bring it closer to you.
We're good.
Tight, man. Huh?
And also, if somebody actually does have a question, let's just be respectful of their feelings, please. Honestly.
That's for hiking, right?
Oh, okay. Amin has a question. Go ahead.
So he asked, please, and let me know if I phrase this correctly, that if you have someone in mind that you already do have feelings for, how would you sort of take the next step with the families and moving forward with pursuing marriage? Correct? Is that the gist of it? Sheikh, do you want to take this? Okay. I think the way you phrased it is really good. The way you mentioned about involving the parents, that is a step that needs to be taken. I think having the parents there from the get-go and seriously talking to the parents and seriously considering this as something that especially if both of y'all are interested in this, talking to the parents and taking it from there and moving through that process with the parents involved first. For me personally, parents were involved, and then we sort of got to know each other with the parents, knowing, and it was in a public space. And then once our deal breakers were crossed off, that was kind of it. There was no more point in just us hanging out talking, because we had gotten to the point where we knew exactly what it is that we want. We crossed it off our list. Parents were on board. For me and my wife, we had a few other things that kind of lengthened the process, but it eventually worked out in the end where those were the things that mattered, and those were the things that needed to be taken care of. And once that happened, then alhamdulillah, happened after that.
So the question again is, what do you do if you have feelings for someone and you want to pursue it? Going back to what Faizan had mentioned earlier as well, knowing what it takes for you to be ready for that relationship, right? And particularly this is for the younger generation, right? Are you there financially? Are you there emotionally? Are you there physically, right? Or is it just trying to obviously satisfy the male urge, right? That's also a part of it. That's also a consideration to be had. But are you going forward based on that, but you cannot take care of your spouse financially, emotionally, physically, and you're just there to be able to get what you want from marriage, which is also a dhulm, it's an oppression. So being able to understand that, knowing what are those things that I have to be ready for, especially for the younger men, make sure we have conversations with our parents. If we go to our parents and talk about, Mama, Baba, Mom, Dad, I want to talk to you about marriage, and the first response they have is they laugh at your face for like 5 minutes, that means you're not ready yet, right? There's at least maybe like, an entire list they'll pull out and be like, before you're ready to get married, how about you learn how to do your own laundry or buy your own underwear for the first time in your life, right? And they might come with like all these things. So understanding that, having that conversation, even when you're in high school or college, and as parents, make sure you have this conversation with them starting off. Have you thought about this idea? What do you think you have to be ready as a man? And as husbands and fathers, being able to talk to the younger generation and say, look, you have to be able to sacrifice and have responsibility and take care of your wife as well as your children. Make sure you're able to provide for them financially. And for those people, alhamdulillah, I was actually in a very unique circumstance, which maybe some of you might be able to get into. If certain family members or parents are willing to even give you some kind of support while you're in college, and perhaps to maybe allow you to get the nikah done. And I'm not sure if this is common in your culture or not, but for some Arabs don't like this, some Desis don't like it, some Arabs do like it, some Desis do like it, and they're fine with it. It really depends family to family. And if you're in that circumstance where maybe yourself are not financially independent, you can still have a conversation with your parents and see where they're at. Because if that conversation with parents doesn't happen, to be able to see what their requirements are for you, which of those requirements are realistic and you have to fulfill them, and which of them are things that are would be nice, but you can talk and try to compromise in certain places. So having those conversations first and foremost with your parents is absolutely key. Because without that, it's going to cause a lot of distress, right? If you start taking the route of I'm going to do this behind my parents' back, I fall in love, mom and dad, I have to be marry her. When you show up as a man and you say that, you're going to lose all credibility because you have no rational sense when you're speaking. You're speaking directly from your heart, and your dad for sure will be like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to get married?" It's like you're not even like thinking right. Who's going to take care of the bills? Who's going to take care of this and that? So being able to, number one, make sure you talk to your parents, figure out where they're at, and hopefully, inshallah, that's the first step.
I have a question, probably relevant for the guys at this age. So, are guys allowed to have a top 10 roster of females they like and eliminate them one by one until they find one? You know what? I don't even think that's a bad question because I probably thought like that too back in the day. So I'm not even gonna be mad at that one. Like meaning, well, okay, this is what I assume because the person's not going to reveal themselves. What I assume is, like, you know a bunch of sisters in the masjid, right? Okay, you might say, maybe let's say five, not 10. 10's a lot. And it's like, okay, you find several of them pretty, for example, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe let me start with this one over here. Okay, and then you learn a little bit about her. Oh, she picks her nose. I don't like that one. You cancel that one off. Then you go to the next one. No, I'm being serious. Or you learn something about her that oh, I don't like her attitude or something like that, right? Like, like should I just focus on one or should I have multiple? Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say that realistically, the answer is yes, you can. Yani, you're serious about getting married, and even if you didn't have an official top 10 roster written somewhere, in your mind you have four girls, let's say, and this one is number one, that one is number two, this one's three, this one's four. That's really what's happening realistically here. And I don't think the questioner is being silly. I don't think he has like a chart that has stars on it and rankings for, you know.
When you said roster, I thought the NFL Combine, like you give me a
Right. Yeah, so it's even anyone who's getting married, he had maybe two or three in his head, and one of them was number one, and the other was number two, and the other was number three. So I don't think it's a problem. And there's nothing Islamically that says no, you can't have a preference. Have a preference, yeah. That's all. Initially, when I read the question, I thought it meant number one, white girls, number two, like that.
okay, what I'd like to do is let the brother speak. Please, just like brief because we have a lot here too. Yeah, thank you.
Sheikh, I'd love to hear your thoughts first and foremost. No, I want to hear your thoughts first.
So I think there's multiple levels of readiness, right? There's a readiness that's between you and your parents, where the family has decided that, all right, Bismillah, we're ready to get married. Let's the family is actively looking for this child to get married. Then there's a readiness that comes between you and the girl, whether y'all two have talked and there's compatibility there, the deal breakers are there, have been taken care of, and there's readiness there to get married. And then after that, there's also, I mean, not after that, but at the same level, there's readiness between the girl and her family, whether she's ready to get married and the family's agreed and the family's on board. I think I can't say like from an Islamic perspective which one comes first, but I think it's important to understand that before the conversation, even like as Sheikh Mahad just mentioned, before the conversation even gets to the girl, that it's a moot point if you and your parents are not on the same page to getting married, because there's going to be a lot of roadblocks that come afterwards if you're ready to get married but you haven't had that discussion with your parents. You haven't talked to your parents. You haven't sat down and discussed with them what it is that you want from life, what it is that you want when you're getting married, and how you're going to move forward, and what's that. In fact, a big thing that comes up, which when I took the premarital course with Suhba, is that family, how families are going to interact after you get married, and that takes being on the same page as well. So at least I think the easiest, maybe not the easiest, but the first battle is between you talking to your parents and making sure that you're on the same page. I think for me, when I first had the conversation, it literally went how you mentioned it, because I was 19 years old. I told my mom I want to get married, and she started laughing at me. And she was like, "You're still a kid," and I was still a kid. But that started a conversation. It started a sort of discussion process between me, my mom, and my dad. And eventually, alhamdulillah, I got to a point where we were like, "All right, good. We're on the same page, and now we can move forward."
All right. So it was a good question. You're at an event, you see a sister on the other side. Is the first step to tell your parents? So there is, I don't believe and see anything wrong Islamically if you did a little bit of reconnaissance first. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, imagine every time you see a girl that you think may be her, you have to run tell your father first. By the 20th time, your father's going to be, listen, you, what's the matter with you? Huh? Every 4 minutes you come running to me, what's the matter with you? So what if you run to your father? I saw a girl. His father, okay, we'll jump on that. Then, oh, she's married. Like, Yahi, why didn't you check first? So is there really, realistically, is there anything wrong Islamically with doing some background check? And that doesn't mean you walk up to the sister, you know, hey, give me digits and la. You can just, you know how easy it is in our community to find out about somebody, right? You talk to your brother who's married and he's got a wife, you know, does your wife know who that is? And everybody knows everybody. Figure stuff out before you run to your parents every time. So you can do a little bit of investigating, all right? And then if there's potential, yeah, and someone can let her know also, يعني, that there's this idea out there before we take it to parents. If there's a green light, okay, let's take it to the next level. You know, so you don't come to your parents with false information every time or duds every time. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask, because I'm gonna try and lump a bunch in one. So I'm gonna talk about like social media, and then we'll go to marrying within the culture, because we always like to talk about that. So I did have a question on you can find basically how do you start approaching somebody's family when you know you found somebody that you like online, right? Like how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I wanted to piggyback off of both of these things, or whatever back you want, not piggyback. But first, I have to give props for all the amazing analogies that Sheikh come out. There was the lion, there was reconnaissance. There's like, this is a mission. Sheikh, this is a mission at this point. This is like, you're getting the brothers ready, mashallah. But to go off of that, the question is, it stems from what? We are a minority living in America as Muslims. I believe the statistic last time I read it, it was like less than 1% still, right? That's insanity. We're less than 1% of the community over here. If you go back home, right? If we go to different parts of the Muslim world, you can't throw a rock except you'll hit a Muslim, probably, like most likely, right? There's everywhere. Your opportunities to marry someone through family or community, there's like countless amounts of people in your parents' minds, in your mind. You've interacted with so many people at school. Everybody's a Muslim over there, right? You're interacting with so many people. We're a Muslim majority country. Now, living in a Muslim minority, ask yourself the question, how often do you interact with Muslims? Okay, how often do you interact with Muslims of the opposite sex? And how often do you interact in a way where then, you know, your family's also involved? This is like very rare for this to even happen, right? Let alone at a masjid, right? A program like this. So understanding what are the avenues and the routes that are out there, it goes back to this question as well. That social media is a route. Through social media, or by using these apps that are out there, or matchmaking services, or going to matrimonial events, understanding that as Muslims, if we're not able to find individuals in our community, or our families don't know someone off the bat, or, you know, we're blessed, alhamdulillah, to be living in Houston. Imagine the poor masakeen living like, you know, like in small town, who knows, like in Texas. Who are they going to marry? There's like 5 people in the entire city, and then it's the cousins and it's like their aunts and the brothers. So it's like, really, for those individuals, these resources are great. And these resources, every single one of them, whether they're apps, matchmaking services, matrimonial events, they can all be used and misused as well. They can be used in a halal Islamic way, and they can also be used for a lot of corruption, a lot of terrible things happen as well on there. So making sure first and foremost, as everybody's already echoed, that parents are on board, they're part of the process, right? Generally part of the process. That once you've gotten to know someone or you're interested in someone and you're either approaching them or approaching them through the apps and your family's also involved, or you met them at a singles event or a program, okay, then be able to understand that these are all permissible avenues as long as the way that we're conducting ourselves, whether it's online or whether it's in person, is in accordance to what will be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think besides social media, the main question was it was how to approach them on social media, or what was it exactly?
Yeah, like get the conversation started with their parents and stuff.
Okay, I think maybe she.
No idea.
How to start the conversation with their parents if you met them through social media or the apps or something.
Yeah, okay. طيب. So I'm trying to keep it real, okay? Like I know there's somewhat of a stigma attached to finding your spouse online, right? So your mom's like, you found her online? Like it's only bad girls online, right? That's not necessarily true. And there are a lot of online ads where the fathers put it on behalf of their daughters and things like that. Realistically, if you stay within Islamic boundaries, it doesn't matter if you found her online, in the lake. It doesn't matter where you found her. If you stay within Islamic boundaries, what's the issue, right? So, but it has a bad reputation because realistically, wallahi, a lot of people just want to fool around, want to chat. One brother from our masjid just last week was telling me he's on this Muslim marriage app, and he says just these girls just want to chit chat. They're not even looking for marriage. He said the minute I found out she wants to just chit chat, okay, salam alaikum. Next, swipe. I don't know which direction, right? So if you found a decent person online, how do you break it to your parents? Wallahi, how else do you break it to your parents? You come with your head down in shame. I'm kidding. You just come and approach them. Tell them I found a person that has this from akhlaq and this from knowledge and this from activity in the community and this and this and that. And like, fantastic. Let's go next Friday to her family. Sorry, she's in Oklahoma. What? Yeah, there's a Muslim app. It's called this, and that. What else are you gonna do? You're serious about it. She's serious. What else are you gonna do? You tell them that you found her online, and this is what we know of them, and so on and so forth. I can't think of anything else. Yani. I don't see it being that difficult. Wallahu alam.
I was gonna say to be preventative, and instead of having to come with that shame, if your parents already know you're on the app, then there's no problem, right? That's the biggest thing. That if you're already being open with them and you're telling them, Mom, Dad, I'm going to this app or I'm going to this singles event and this program's happening over there, there's no shame. They'll be happy you found someone, right? But again, if you're doing something behind their back, then the question is, how do I approach? Because the question is, how do I approach when I know I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing? If you know that your parents are supporting you, alhamdulillah, they're happy. They're wanting to go forward in the process, inshallah.
I just want to make it very clear, okay? Let's put it this way. If you want to get down to it, it really doesn't matter where you met. You can meet a girl in the masjid and the relationship can turn towards the haram. Okay? So what really matters is that you stick within the boundaries. You want barakah for the rest of your life? Stick within the boundaries. Okay? Maybe she fell off a tree. Doesn't matter. He's like, well, which tree? Well, I want to stand under that tree.
All right, so I want to move on to the next basically topic here. So this is good because it saved me a lot of work. I wasted time coming up with questions myself. So okay, so culture marriage, basically. I think we understand what that means because we've heard it before. So somebody asked, what are the benefits of specifically marrying within my culture? And then let's start with that. And there's another one after that.
Does it tie in with the first question?
Okay, the second part is then somebody was asking, well, what if they want me to marry in a particular culture, but that's not my preference? What should I still just abide by it? If my parents want me to, like for Nigerian, but I don't really, I prefer, I don't know, Ethiopians or something like that.
So when I was going through the marriage process, a big thing for me was like I was open to marrying outside my culture as well. But surprise, surprise, I ended up marrying in my culture because I think there are benefits that come to marrying within your culture, and that's specifically that you kind of know the customs, you know how things generally are, you can relate a little bit more on certain things. But there is nothing, I don't think anyone would say that there's anything wrong marrying outside your culture. But do have to understand that there are certain pluses that come with marrying within your culture. And even within our culture, like for I'll give my own personal example. One thing that my parents kind of had a hiccup on was I was from a certain part of Pakistan and my wife was from a different part of Pakistan, which you can take the level of like sticking to your own people, your own tribe, your own culture to an extreme. And when it gets to that extreme, it can be detrimental to the entire process. It was for me, and that's why it kind of took a little bit longer for me to get married. But if I look at it, and if I look at just the benefits that come from being the same culture, there are benefits there. But I don't think there's anything wrong with marrying outside your culture.
Um, yeah, I agree with that, and I would like to point out something else that. So for a lot of people, like, or for a lot of us, we're a mix of different cultures, right? Like if you one of you guys met a Pakistani girl or an Arab girl, you're I'm willing to bet that the both of you are more American culturally than whatever it is your parents are from. True or false? Yeah, yeah, and that's the truth. So, like for example, I'm from Sudan originally, and my wife is Palestinian originally. Okay, and yes, they are inferior to us because we're from Sudan. Just kidding. She's not here yet, so I can say this joke. All right. So, but but realistically, we don't have a problem because she grew up here, and I kind of grew up here. So we meet there. Is a Venn diagram kind of, or what's it called when they, yeah, the overlap, right? So, but yes, sometimes you're both culturally American, but the parents are culturally from somewhere else, and then they expect your wife to treat her in that way according to their culture, and her parents expect you to. So it can be smoother if you're from the same culture, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be such a huge problem. And I think if people communicate well and figure out where their own boundaries are and all that, the cultural boundaries, personal, then you could manage it. I don't think it's such an obstacle. What do you think, Sheikh?
Jazakallah khair. No, I agree with that. And I think this conversation actually is sometimes needed to be directed towards the parents' generation more. Because again, the points that Sheikh Kamal is mentioning, the young folks, they already know that. Regardless if a young Muslim woman was raised over here and she has good Islamic values, regardless of her cultural background, literally some of those young folks, the only connection they have to their culture is the food, the best part, alhamdulillah. And then on top of that, maybe the clothing. Maybe they speak the language of back home, but a lot of times the parents' mindset is we should get them married to someone from the same culture because it'll be more compatible for them. The reality is someone from the same culture will be more compatible with the parent, will be more compatible with you, which is also a good thing to have. Because some folks, maybe the mother or the father, they don't speak English very much and they speak their language, their native tongue. And they want someone who can also speak the native tongue and they want to be able to converse in that language. But at the same time, also understanding that for young men and women to find a good Muslim man or a woman to marry is a very challenging thing. And if they found someone, even if they're from a different cultural background, and if we say based on culture, I will not even entertain this. Understand, this is literally going to the hadith of the Prophet, that when you find a good person that they come and approach you for your child and you turn them away, what will you see on the earth? Fasad. You will see corruption, you will see destruction, you will see all the evils coming about because of that. So making sure that when our children do bring someone respectable from a good family, or even the person is just very good, do not just brush it off like it's nothing. Because it could be that, again, just because they're from a different cultural background, remember, the parents are not living with this in-law, the son-in-law or daughter-in-law. The child, your son or daughter, will be living with this person. How compatible are they? And your compatibility is secondary to the compatibility of obviously the son and the daughter, or the two young men and women, inshallah.
Okay. Did we cover the what if it's not my preference thing? Did we cover that? So, yes. Did we cover that just now?
What's the question?
So basically, they're saying that okay, what if it's not your should you still go along with your parents' wishes if it's not your preference to marry within your culture? Okay. Okay. If it is not your preference to marry within your culture, but your parents still want you to, should I just go along with their preference or try my own thing?
All right. So who's gonna be stuck with your non-preference for the rest of your life, probably? Yeah. Wallahi, look, and feel free, please, to disagree. But I'm very against the idea of, oh, my parents want this, okay? And I deal with this all the time in the masjid. I deal with this with families who are just living a nightmare. And then, oh, but my mother keeps telling me, get back together with your husband. All right, so I tell her, when your mother says this to you, she goes home and she makes herself a cup of tea and she finishes her show on Netflix and she laughs with your father, ha ha ha, and you're at home suffering with this guy. And I don't like the idea of someone telling you what you should do, and then they go on with their life and you have to get stuck in their preference. Wallahi, I don't think that's fair. So, and not everything has to be a rebellion and a calamity and a big family feud and fight and what have you. You can just insist that you don't want from X culture, even if it's your own. You can insist very politely, very respectfully, without starting a fight and running to your room and slamming the door. All right. But I really don't believe that you should live with a person you don't want to be with because someone who's not going to be living with you told you you should do that, and then they go on vacation and leave you suffering. And feel free to disagree.
No, no, I agree 100%. The only sentiment that I want to echo, and this is something that I've seen come up again and again, learn how to be respectful when disagreeing with your parents. Because this is a big, big skill to have. And our parents are not owed blind obedience, they are owed blind respect. And Allah commands us to respect them. In fact, He commanded Musa alayhi salam to be respectful to Fir'aun. We have to be respectful to them. But we don't have to blindly agree to everything that they say. But we need to learn the art of disagreeing with them respectfully and in a way that is best. Because it may initially with your parents, it might be that they get upset with you, they get angry with you. But if you can continuously and consistently disagree with them respectfully, then this will pay off for you in the end, first with Allah and then with your parents as well, inshallah.
So, oh, you have something on that?
No, I was gonna just to close off with that. I think it's absolutely agreed with those points. It's very essential because it could be that it's not just cultural, but it could be the person from some of the same culture, and they're just not agreeing to this person because maybe they have a feud with their parents, or maybe they don't like the girl, or maybe whatever the reason is. And a lot of times, even I hope we get to this question as well, that it could be that the parents just do not approve of anybody that the child brings, and the parents say, no, we have to be the ones to select. And I think that point, especially for the parents to understand that as parents, we're there to guide our children, to force them and to do ijbar and force a child to marry someone. This is going to end in a disaster, right? And even if it ends up okay, alhamdulillah, you dodged a massive bullet. But to force something on someone, this is something that we know. When a young woman came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, my father has forcibly married me off, he annulled the marriage right then and there. He ended the marriage right then and there. So to understand that we're taking the steps literally counter to what the Messenger of Allah is telling us. Have shura, have conversation with the child, and as young men, have conversation with the parents, because that is absolutely essential to this process. And if you're finding there's a pushback from the parents, and the parents don't want to hear what you have to say, you have to be able to get somebody involved. Maybe it's an older brother of the father, maybe it's an imam, maybe it's somebody in the community you can reach out to for some kind of support. Because if you're saying what you want is on this side, and anybody that you ever bring is getting shut down over and over again by your parents, and literally your parents are saying, yes, you can marry whoever you want, as long as we pick the person for you, it's like you really have no opportunity. You have no chance over here. So make sure you have these conversations, get people involved. Get people involved, inshallah, in the process that can help you facilitate conversation, inshallah.
Okay, I just have one comment to add, and I'm gonna just I'm not gonna disagree with Sheikh Kamal, but just add something extra to it, right? So someone said, if that's really the case, you say you don't like in my own experience with people that I know. Some people saying, "I'm not marrying, a such and such because they're all like blah blah blah," and then 5 years later they're marrying a such and such who's like blah blah blah, right? So I've seen that over and over again. Actually, just recently, somebody's like, I prefer women from this country," and sure enough, they married someone from their own country, right? So, don't just immediately say, "I don't want," because then you're just, I mean, I feel like you're just kind of wasting time because you could, you're artificially, I guess, shrinking your pool unnecessarily. If they meet your criteria, not sure, and they are from your culture that your parents approve of, then fine. But obviously, I think, but obviously, Sheikh Kamal, I assume would agree. You don't just pick, yeah, you don't just pick somebody just because they're your culture and you don't like anything about them, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to add. Go ahead.
One point I wanted to bounce off of that is that I love what Qadri mentioned in terms of that terminology. Don't just discount someone because of X, Y, and Z. And this is the same thing when it comes to the person's different cultural background, or even depending on how this person came to you, right? As Sheikh Kamal mentioned, whether you met them at the masjid, whether you were co-workers with them, whether you met them on an app, whether you met them at a singles event, or whether, listen to this, guys, young folks, or whether your parents brought you this person. Don't just discount it and say, well, I would never in my life marry someone my parents brought. That's so backward. How could I do that, right? And we have no idea who Allah's written for us to be married to. It could be this person comes to us because our parents brought them. Or it could be this person comes to us because we went to school with them. So that's why for the parents and for the kids, having an open mind in that we have no idea where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written our rizq, even with relationships, and where that would be. So be open-minded to this as parents and as children to be able to understand that, inshallah.
All right, so I just had a follow-up question. Actually, you know what? Ask your question. Go ahead. Before I forget, 'cause I'm gonna forget you.
Yeah, they do. They definitely do. They also don't work too. Just like a regular marriage, they will work. Just like a regular marriage sometimes will work and won't work. Arranged marriages sometimes will work and won't work as well. It really is the quality of the relationship and what the husband and wife are putting into that relationship. How actively are they working on being able to have good communication, good conflict resolution, good emotional intimacy, good physical intimacy? How much are they willing to put that effort in? That could be in an arranged marriage, or that could be in a, you want to call it a love marriage or whatever the opposite of that is, or like a self-selected marriage, whatever you want to call it. It's really about the effort of the husband and the wife and what they're doing in that relationship.
So let's all be on the same page as far as what arranged marriage means. The way your white friends use it, okay, they mean that you were forced to get married. All right. Everybody I know, like their white friends at work, are like, "Did you guys have an arranged marriage?" Meaning, it's like buying a watermelon. You don't know if it's sweet. You go home, you bust it open, you're like, "Oh snap, it's not sweet." That's not what it means. All right. So, so, so if okay, so let's be clear. Forced marriages, that's not even permissible in Islam. Cannot force the guy or the girl. All right. Arranged meaning someone hooked you up. Statistically speaking, as far as statistics are concerned, those marriages have a higher success rate. All right. And I was just reading about a study in India on the way here. I was reading about a study in India about what they referred to in this article as arranged marriages, meaning somebody introduced you to someone else, versus love marriages, where you marry the love of your life, your high school sweetheart, all that Hollywood stuff. And of course, so in a number of countries, it was shown that arranged marriages where someone introduced you to someone, they have a higher success rate than one where you marry the person where you fell in love with or what have you. And they mentioned a number of things. I'll only cite two of them. All right. Number one is when someone hooks you up, let's just refer to it as that. They look for what's the term? Like not yeah, compatibility, and they look for the I don't want to say baseline. Was there another word? Like the basic things that where you compatible. Like for example, my wife and I have been involved with doing matchmaking, like on a small scale. All right. So, like, let's say we have a brother in our masjid and he wants a sister. What are we gonna do? We're gonna look. I know exactly how he is. I'm going to look for someone on that level of religiosity and, humor / seriousness and everything. So from the beginning, when someone introduces someone to you or suggests someone to you, they've already based on what they know about you, chosen someone that they believe might be quite compatible to you or on your level as far as understanding and religiosity and so on. So there's always also that baseline of compatibility. That's the first reason. And the second thing is really simple. It's like love is blind, right? When people are in love, they don't get to see everything wrong with the individual. Everything is great about them. You know, the guy thinks, the girl thinks you're great and everything. Then you get married, and then, you know, things happen. It cools down a little bit. Then you hate, that's when you start hating everything. Because first it's like, I love the way you hold the fork. That's before marriage. Then after marriage, yeah, hold the fork like a normal human being. What is this? Okay, I'll stop there.
I mean, I have nothing else to add except yeah, they do work. But again, like Sheikh Mahad mentioned, it can go either way with love marriage or. No. Yeah, I'll take all the talking points.
Yeah. Okay. So, mashallah, this is going very good. I just want to say I appreciate everybody texting in the questions and stuff. Okay. So I got two questions I want to make sure I get to. So one of them is, okay, family A and family B are feuding, but then child from family A and child from family B like each other. What do I do?
I haven't encountered a scenario like this. Do you want to take this?
I have one case scenario, that case study right now, how it worked out, how it went well. Okay, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, guys. I was just mentioning to Sheikh Kamal and Faizan that literally we have a case like this currently right now, where the parents, they knew each other from high school. They crossed each other the wrong way. Something happened. The fathers were feuding. They had some bad and now these guys were what, 15 years old. They're in their 40s now. They're about to get into their 50s, and they're like, no, I will not say salam to him. I will not go to him. And subhanallah, and qadr Allah, think about this. The person that you were feuding with, your kids end up wanting to actually get married. And on top of that, what's happening is, because of the feud, the parents are being blinded to the fact that there are two good Muslim kids that want to get married, and we're preventing that. And it's a sad reality. And the situation that I'm witnessing right now, alhamdulillah, it's turning out well, is that literally both the son and daughter, not the son and daughter, sorry, the boy and the girl, the young man and the woman rather, they got to a point where the parents were not willing to budge. They were not even willing to meet one another. And they said to themselves that we're not going to pursue this because we don't want to cause more problems for ourselves, our own families, and then amongst each other. Now, other people who might be a bit older, maybe like you're in your late 20s, you're in your 30s, and your parents are having those issues, and you're like, yes, I need to get married. Like, this is a bit too much now. Then we need to get some mashayikh, some folks involved. But again, getting people involved is the best thing. But the first step is this: Allah is the turner of hearts. When someone's heart is hardened against someone, you can mention all the good things you want, but if we're not making dua actively for it, we have no idea. The sister literally came into our office the other day, and she said her father was going to go on a trip for a couple of months, and she said, I know you're sad. Sit down, I want to talk to you. If I come back after this trip and you still want to marry this boy, I'll go talk to the father. And subhanAllah, like literally for months, the boy and the girl were just like sad, and they were just like, all they were doing is making dua and saying, it's in Allah's hands. What are we going to do? Are we going to like run away? Are we going to do something like that? No. They had to be actively making dua, actively have conversations with your parents, get people involved that can mediate and moderate. And it's a sad reality that unfortunately, because of as the adults, because of our disagreements with others, we're preventing our children from something so beautiful, something halal. So may Allah help us in our communities. Ameen.
Okay, I have this. Let me find this a little bit longer question here. So, a lot of Muslim children have problems with sexual desire straight after puberty. However, most immigrant parents don't want the guys to get married until at least a bachelor's degree. How can someone deal with these desires in the halal way? Can someone get married earlier for these desires up until they are really okay? What? Okay, I guess maybe can someone get married? I don't understand what that means. Maybe like a nikah, but not living together. Maybe that's what that means before they're financially ready. I don't understand the last part, but basically, how do you deal with your desires in a halal way? And about what do you think about marrying early? I think that's probably the second part. Okay, can someone get married early for these desires up until they are ready financially and fully ready to get actually married? Or is there?
Wallahi, okay. طيب, let me just say a few things and not really hit. I'll leave the meat and potatoes over here. I'll just say some basic things. I just want to share something with you that a friend of mine, the sheikh, he said to me, and it was like, one of those things that are painful. He said, a young American boy here, like, whatever age, 15, 16, 17, who has a girlfriend, is living a more natural life than the Muslim who is maybe even 27 at this point and he's not married yet. And meaning you refrain from, so you're in yani the peak of the desires in that age. That's when you're just holding back, restraining, refraining, and then you get married maybe a little late, and then in 2 years she has children, and then goodbye to that part of the it's done. So like I've been holding myself all these years, and I lost the prime of my life, and now what? It's over so quickly. Yeah, and it's just so wrong. Yeah. But I have no yani, practical solution. We constructed a world around us that in order to understand this world, you have to continue for years of education. And when you cannot be studying and married at the same time, so you lose out on, the time when your desire is like at full fledged. This is when you're supposed to study, get good grades, and don't think about marriage right now. It's just realistically, it's such a backwards world when you look at it that in that sense. So I really feel for all the young men and women that they have to delay what is natural because of studying and things like of that sort. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to say two things. So, this is the Imam of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and I used to believe, and I really love this advice. He used to tell his students, finish your studies, okay? Before you get married, finish your studies. And after you finish your studies, because, they used to study with him, and it's almost like university, where like day and night they're just learning and memorizing and writing. So he says, after you finish your studies, work, and then like have a good earning and start saving, and then get married, so that the girl doesn't suffer with you while you're a broke student. She doesn't suffer with you while you're still getting your foothold in the marketplace and trying to establish yourself. The only exception to that is that if someone genuinely is afraid to fall into zina. The biggest disaster is for someone to fall into zina, and that's like the third highest sin, ya ikhwan. Yani we've got shirk, we've got murder, we've got zina, worse than alcohol. So realistically, and if someone comes, and I know someone like this, a very unique type of father. He said, my son came to me and he says, if I just look at a woman's fingers, I'm about to lose my mind. The father said, some of y'all like this too. The father said, you know what? I was afraid for my son to fall into zina. Even if he lives in the basement, this is the East Coast, we have basements there. He said, even if he lives in the basement while he goes through school and I pay for him, it's better than him falling into zina. So if someone is genuinely afraid to fall into the haram, I believe they should get married instantly, and they should not put themselves in danger like that. For everyone else, this is the world we live in, and unless your father's a millionaire, or you have these different circumstances, you bought Bitcoin when it was 3 cents a coin or whatever, then you can, but maybe other solutions will come from our panelists.
I think the only thing that I want to add is making sure that it's actually the last bit of the question about how you can kind of get married to fulfill your desires and then get real married later on, which kind of, I don't know what that means exactly, real married versus half married. But I do want to kind of build off of the sentiment that Sheikh Kamal mentioned of how if this is something that you are going to get married to someone else to fulfill these desires, realize that there are responsibilities that come with being with this other person. And part of those responsibilities are taking care of them emotionally, financially, giving them a place to stay. And if there's an understanding with your parents of how that's going to work, then yeah, sure, bismillah. But there should be an understanding of it before. There should be some idea of like building on those responsibilities, how those responsibilities are going to be taken care of, how that person is going to be taken care of. Because as a man, if you are married to someone else, then you are responsible for them and have an idea of how those responsibilities will be taken care of, inshallah.
I absolutely agree with what they mentioned, mashallah. I was just gonna You know, honestly, this topic is like it opens up so many other things in my mind that need to be discussed. As Sheikh Kamal mentioned, the society and how we're living is so telling. When Jabir ibn Abdullah was asked by the Prophet Muhammad SAW, did you marry a divorcee? Did you marry a widow? Or did you marry a virgin girl, a younger girl? Do you know how old he was when he was asked this question? He was about 17, maybe 18, maybe 19 years old. Could you even imagine, like, first off, a 17 to 19-year-old getting married? And the question is, did you marry a divorcee or a widow? Our concept of marriage and divorce is very, very different than that at the time of the Prophet said. Someone got divorced, it was not seen as, oh, this person, khalas, they're done, might as well just like bury them now, it's over for them. No, people were, if they knew there was a good value sister or a good value brother, they would go and, as soon as the iddah is done, as soon as they're ready to get married, go and propose, go forward with this. And that's unfortunately the reality as well, that if we allow our young folks to get married, just the same as older folks as well, their relationships can also end. These younger folks, their relationships can also end. But I think, you know, I don't want to go too much into this because it's us as a community realizing the structure of this relationship, that these young men and women are living in a hyper sexualized environment. You want to try to stay halal, you can't even do that on your Instagram feed. You're trying to just scroll, you're like, my God, I can't save myself, I can't protect myself. These things were not accessible. Like when you hear the hadith about a young man saying that he saw a woman bathing and he was like, you know, shook up by this. SubhanAllah, we see like 1,000 times worse by just like going and seeing a billboard or going to like a movie or something, right? You're seeing all these things far more, so easily accessible. So to understand that we're living in a society that unfortunately is making it very difficult. At the same time, I would say that, number one, going back to the advice of the Messenger of Allah, for the one who is not able to get married, fast. What does that do? It, number one, diminishes your energy. What I'll pair that fasting up with is, guys, make sure you're going to the gym. This might work. This might go counterproductive if you go the wrong time. Make sure you go the right time to the gym. Go after Fajr. Go at a time when there's barely anybody else there. Work out, get your physical exertion out, play basketball with the guys, physically exert yourself. Keep yourself mentally busy, get a job, work part-time, volunteer, keep yourself busy. Because if you know that journey to getting married according to your parents, because of finances or because of yourself, is 4 to 5 years, don't be in a miserable place where you get addicted to pornography or addicted to whatever it is, and it's taking away from you and your iman and eating away at you. Do something practically to make sure you're staying away from that. Keep good company. Stay with the youth group. Go exercise. Get a part-time job. It doesn't matter if your parents, mashallah, are willing to buy you all the cars and whatever you're financially set. Still get a job. It'll build responsibility in you, inshallah. Go volunteer. Spend your time. One other thing, this is a bit more controversial, but I would go and look at the video that Sheikh Yasir Qadi put out regarding masturbation and the different kind of topics that he mentions over there. That's a topic that just be able to kind of watch that yourself, understand this concept, and be able to understand better, inshallah, what the Islamic kind of the rulings are regarding that, inshallah. And you can find it. Yasir Qadi, you'll type that up, you'll find it, inshallah.
All right, so we are officially done. I hope I answered everybody got their questions answered sufficiently. If not, as you know, I don't know what their schedule is like, but just try and catch them and ask them as they're going out. So right now we're going to call up Abdul Rahman to come and give the thanks to our panelists.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan for coming out here and delivering and giving us your wisdom on these topics that most of the youth have no knowledge of. Alhamdulillah, I met each of these at several different institutions of knowledge, and alhamdulillah, they're fundamental in who I am today. So jazakallah khairan. Sheikh Kamal al-Makki, Sheikh Faizan Majid. No problem. Okay.
I wish it was serious like that. Just for the record, I would like to say that I am still angry with every Nigerian I've met in my whole life. Yes, I'll tell you why. In second grade, my best friend was from Nigeria. He would come to my house, I would go to his house. When I lived in Czechoslovakia, my friends were from Nigeria. They come to my house, I'd go to their house. And I'm upset with every Nigerian I met in my life because only 4 years ago in a Nigerian conference in Dallas, someone finally introduced me to jollof rice. When I tasted that, I was like, well, how come nobody told me about this before? So thank you, all of you. I'm still upset.
Well, alhamdulillah. But unfortunately, we do not have jollof rice tonight, but we have something you might like. We have porridge. Inshallah. It's not jollof rice. As a matter of fact, this for lunch today, it was jollof rice, but you came late. But let's see what we can do. Maybe we can dig into some place and find a lunch, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Very interesting conversation. Alhamdulillah. So, inshallah, we're going to get ready for Maghrib and Isha before we leave. Okay? Dinner is going to be served at the dining hall. The dinner will be to go. Okay? But before we leave, please let us pray Maghrib and Isha. Okay? Then please, tomorrow, it's gonna be at Masjid-ul at 7 a.m.